Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're exploring something that is, well, literally one of the most universal human mysteries out there. What actually happens when we die? It's a question that's fascinated us for millennia, right? Yet, honestly, it's astonishingly misunderstood by most people today. So, to really dig into it, we're going to look at the work of Dr. Robert A. Peterson, specifically his theological framework on eschatology, which is just a fancy word for the study of last things. Dr. Peterson brings this highly structured, scriptural approach to the timeline, and we're going to unpack exactly how he maps out the journey of the human soul.
So, here's the absolute core question we need to ask ourselves. What happens immediately after we take our last breath? There is a massive misconception here. A lot of people tend to confuse the temporary waiting period right after physical death with the final, ultimate, eternal state of the afterlife. But, as you'll see, Dr. Peterson's framework argues that these are absolutely two distinctly different phases.
Okay, let's dive right into our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at the nature of death, the three states of existence, the intermediate heaven, the intermediate hell, and finally, the final hope.
Starting off with Section 1, the nature of death, the unnatural enemy.
So if death is this unnatural intruder into human existence, how exactly do believers face it? Well, according to Dr. Peterson's reading of Scripture, specifically looking at 1 Corinthians 15, death was literally never meant to be a natural part of human existence. It's viewed and explicitly described as the last unnatural enemy that needs to be destroyed. Now, to understand how to face this, we have to look at this absolutely crucial theological concept, credited to biblical scholars like Gerhard Voss and Oscar Cullmann. It's called the already and not yet. Basically, this framework suggests that believers already experience spiritual life in union with Christ, meaning they can overcome the fear of death right now, today. But they have not yet experienced the complete physical resurrection. So the victory is already secured spiritually, it's just not yet fulfilled physically. Make sense?
And this really brilliantly illustrates Dr. Peterson's point that death actually has two distinct dimensions, both stemming from the penalty of sin in Eden. Think about it. When Adam and Eve sinned, the consequence was death. But if you look closely at the timeline in Genesis 3, it shows an immediate spiritual death. They instantly hid from God's presence. But then, it's not until Genesis 5 that we see physical death recorded, the eventual return of the body to dust, which happened centuries later. So death is essentially a two-parter, spiritual separation and physical decay.
Moving on to Section 2, Three States of Existence, the Theological Paradigm Shift.
This brings us to the real central thesis of the whole thing. Usually, when we think about life and death, we tend to think in just two steps, right? You're alive, and then boom, you're in eternity. But Dr. Peterson actually maps out a three-step journey. Step 1 is our present state, life right now in our physical bodies. Step 3 is the final state, the eternal resurrection. But right smack in the middle is Step 2, the intermediate state. And Dr. Peterson heavily emphasizes this point. This intermediate phase, where the immaterial soul is completely separated from the physical body, is actually considered abnormal. From the perspective of biblical anthropology, humans are meant to be embodied. So think of this intermediate state essentially as a temporary waiting room for the soul.
Let's look at Section 3, the intermediate heaven, the believer's path.
So you're probably wondering what exactly happens in this waiting room for the believer. Well, the crucial point is captured right here in Luke 23. This is Jesus speaking to the criminal on the cross right beside him. He says, "Truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise." Notice that Jesus doesn't say, hey, thousands of years from now at the resurrection you'll be with me. No, he specifically says today. Dr. Peterson points out that while their physical bodies obviously remained on the crosses, this completely proves an immediate conscious bliss in an intermediate heaven, totally without a physical body.
We actually see this exact same thing again with the Apostle Paul in Philippians. Paul is sitting in prison, kind of contemplating whether he's going to live or die, and he says his desire is to depart and be with Christ, for that is far better. Now, what's super interesting about this verse, and this is a really key observation from Dr. Peterson, is the use of personal pronouns. Paul says, my desire, depart, be with Christ. This continuous use of personal pronouns throughout Scripture indicates that even in an unembodied state, human beings retain their continuous personality and consciousness. Basically, you are still you. To really drive this home, Dr. Peterson uses this incredibly memorable junior high grammar analogy to explain the progression. Life right now, knowing Christ in our physical bodies, is good. But just as Paul said, departing the body to be with Christ in the intermediate heaven is better. Now you might be asking, why on earth is it better to be in an abnormal disembodied state? Well, because in this intermediate state, the believer is finally completely separated from sin and gets to be in the immediate presence of Christ. It's a profound upgrade for sure, even if it isn't the final destination.
All right, Section 4, the intermediate hell, the unbeliever's path.
Now, while the Bible definitely speaks a bit less frequently about this intermediate waiting period for the lost, it does provide some very specific teachings that map out an intermediate judgment. Let's see how this builds in Luke 16 with the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. In this story, you have a wealthy man who completely ignores a suffering poor man named Lazarus. Eventually, both men physically die. But immediately after death, Lazarus is carried off to Abraham's side, which is a symbol of the intermediate heaven, while the rich man suddenly finds himself in torment in Hades. Dr. Peterson really stresses here that this specific story is depicting the intermediate state directly after death, not the final end-of-time judgment.
Just look at the stark contrast between their fates. I mean, imagine completely leaving your physical body behind, yet still retaining your continuous consciousness, memory, and personality. That is exactly what happens here. From a theological perspective, it's honestly fascinating that the rich man remembers his past life. He can communicate, he remembers his 5 brothers who are still living on Earth, and he even feels physical sensations, all while being completely separated from his physical body. Wild, right?
Furthermore, the parable introduces a pretty sobering reality. Abraham tells the rich man that a great chasm has been fixed between them. Dr. Peterson highlights this to firmly state that the text is teaching a permanent separation, with absolutely no second chances after physical death. Once you're in the intermediate state, movement between heaven and hell is just impossible. Dr. Peterson also reinforces this whole concept using 2 Peter 2:9, which notes that the unrighteous are kept under punishment until the final day of judgment.
And finally, Section 5, the final hope, the ultimate resurrection.
All right, so this finally brings us out of the intermediate waiting room. Where does this whole timeline ultimately conclude? Well, let's complete that grammar analogy with the enthusiasm it deserves. We had good for our present life and better for the intermediate heaven. But listen, the intermediate state is not the ultimate goal. The best is the final physical resurrection of the body. Remember, God's original design was for humans to be embodied. So the best is to be totally sanctified, fully justified, and gloriously reunited with a physical body to inherit the fully realized kingdom. Now that's something to look forward to.
So let's tie all of Dr. Peterson's concepts together into one cohesive timeline for you. We begin with our present life, which is good. Then comes physical death, which brings about that unnatural separation of body and soul. This plunges us into the intermediate state, which is either better for the believer in paradise or worse for the unbeliever in Hades. But as we've learned, the timeline doesn't end there. It marches forward to the final resurrection, resulting in the ultimate best for the righteous and the final eternal judgment for the lost.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative thought based on this structured timeline. If the intermediate state, whether it's heaven or hell, is merely a temporary, unembodied waiting room, how does the promise of a final, permanent physical resurrection change how we value our physical lives and our actions right now, today? You see, understanding this framework doesn't just clarify the afterlife, it completely reframes the purpose of our present moment. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I genuinely hope this deep dive into the eschatological timeline leaves you eager to explore even more.